Thanks for joining us. This is a special edition inside Notepad called The Economics of Elections, where we try to unpack some of the economic conditions and scenarios of the elections and perhaps try to understand better how the candidates are performing during this campaign period. Joining me in the studio is Ng Miao Ling. She is, of course, an information and media policy activist. She's also a former media striking officer at the CIJ, or Centre for Independent Journalism, and she has spent some time talking about the ideas of unpacking rhetorics coming in from candidates in this campaign. Miao Ling, thanks again for taking the time to speak with us, and of course making the way here. It's not easy right now because of all the LRT issues and Grab issues and many other stuff that is currently happening in the country. But generally speaking, my first question to you is this. The campaign period has been going on for the past, 5-6 days. We are entering the final weekend before the very hectic final week of campaigning. What has been your take and your perception of this campaign for the past few days?
I think the biggest dilemma that everyone have right now is too much information.
Oh, TMI.
Yes. So many information. How do I choose information so that I don't get swayed away by my emotions, so that I make an informed decision?
But election is all about emotion, don't you think?
No, it's half rationalism and half emotions. And this is according to a studies. Oh, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
But they say that elections and voting is like buying stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are some of you, a part of you that is rational and a part of you that's emotional, and it depends on the voices beside you.
Okay, so let's talk about the voices beside us. What are you looking at, and how can you clarify further for us to understand this better?
So it depends on the kind of rhetorics that the politicians are actually using. So we have to first understand that when we go into an information war, so elections is about an information war, we cannot just go in and just listen. We are going to be swayed away very easily. We need to put on our armor. We need to make sure that we are identifying information that benefits us so that we make an informed decision.
Okay. We now have confirmed 945 candidates vying for 2022 parliamentary seats, a few hundred more vying for the state seats. Based on some of the studies that has been shown, the proliferation of information and the existence of cyber troopers, I do believe that cyber troopers for this particular election is less than before. However, the persistence of them being around is still there. Maybe you can challenge this particular notion of mine. But how do we as voters continue to find, I guess, the truth and not be misled by the information that is being spewed by these kind of candidates?
Sure. So the first thing that we need to tell ourselves that elections is not about what the politician says. It's about what I want. What is elections about? It's about finding candidates that solve my problem. So right now you have 1,000, let's say, examination paper, you are a teacher. You need to come up with an examination criteria. And that examination criteria, the first thing that you have to do is, what is your problem? You need to first outline your problem. So my problem is perhaps inflation. Things are very expensive, and job opportunities. After you have this examination criteria, you start looking at what the politicians are saying. So some politicians are saying, if I win, I'm just going to give you a holiday. Is that relevant? That's not relevant information. You just brush it off. So you narrow down on the important informations. And then...
Okay, go on.
Yeah, sorry. So when you look at the politicians' rhetoric, there are two things that you need to look at. You cannot just believe in them. The first thing is the possibility and the likelihood that they are going to come out, they are going to finish what they promise. And the second thing is how they are going to do it.
Okay, do you think that voter preferences are different from urban to rural, and then of course the different races, the different kind of demography, the kind of standing in life? There's so many slices that we need to look at in terms of Malaysian fabric or tapestry of society. Do you feel that how people retrieve information or consume information is different from one place to another?
So I think how people consume information may be different, but the formula that I gave just now is the same. What is your problem?
So relevancy.
Yes, you sift out the irrelevant information and you sift out the emotional information. You take in the rational information to make an informed decision. Okay,
using that formula that you shared just now, what would be then the key factors that would affect influence in this political campaign?
So there are two things that will affect the influence of a political campaign. A lot of people say that perhaps we should split it by platform, social media, traditional media, and all ceramah. Actually, no, because they are all a source of information. information shapes our thinking informs our action. It's the amount of information that I'm taking. And that's why there are two things that will determine the impact of a political campaign. Three things, I'm sorry. The first one is the relatability of the rhetoric. Relatability. The second one is the reach of that message. And the third one is the repetition of that message. Repetition is very, very powerful because imagine you are, let's say someone gives you a false information and you are getting this false information from 3 or 4 different people, it will become true. And that's why the influence of a political campaign is based on the relatability, reach, and repetition.
Okay, let's look at the rhetorics that has been given by these 3 major coalitions, Perikatan Nasional, Barisan Nasional, and Pakatan Harapan.
All right, sure. So when we are talking about rhetoric, we see the effectiveness of rhetoric by the relatability. So what is relatability? It's kind of like an abstract term, isn't it, like scholar? So relatability is whether or not you understand this rhetoric and whether you want to talk about it, right? So the key factors that determines an effective rhetoric is the topic that you're choosing. And the mode of discussion. So how are you packaging it? Are you doing it through video? Are you doing it through 100-page textbook that people don't want to read? Okay, so with this in mind, we are going to analyze the advantages or disadvantages of different rhetoric by the political parties. So because Perikatan Nasional, they have overlapping rhetoric with Pakatan Harapan and Barisan Nasional, so I'm just going to compare PH and BN for the ease of reference. So the advantage of Barisan Nasional's rhetoric, they talk about stability, progress, as well as the rhetoric that they have been punching on for 60 years, which is the race rhetoric, unity of Malay and all. This advantage of this rhetoric is that it's extremely relatable. It's about identity. It doesn't require a lot of understanding, a lot of knowledge to talk about this, unlike policy, things that are very boring. But what is the disadvantage of this rhetoric? The disadvantage being that it is extremely vulnerable before a real problem. Let's say back in 2018, during the birthday thing, they are trying to phrase the birthday rally from an anti-corruption rally to be a Chinese rally to topple the Malay government, but they are not successful. So before a real problem like corruption, they are vulnerable. And also in 2021, Sheraton move was justified in the name of unity of Malay, and then in 2021, PN government fall because of Kerajaan gagal. So this kind of rhetoric, they are emotional rhetoric, they are extremely vulnerable before a real problem.
Now, because of this, how does this translate to voter sentiment this time round?
Sorry, one more time.
As in, how would, say, for instance, the rural Malay votes see this? Do they remember these kind of rhetorics, or do they feel that it is relatable and therefore they can act on their conscience to continuously vote for Barisan Nasional this time round?
All right, so this depends on the voices around them.
Okay.
So this depends, if I could just shift to what PH is talking about.
Okay.
So last time, Barisan Nasional used to be, what a must vote. It becomes a must vote.
Okay.
But where they become very corrupt, and when they start using all this kind of rhetoric, it does not work anymore when there's a lot of problem.
Okay.
This is where Pakatan Harapan's rhetoric comes in.
Okay.
Pakatan Harapan's rhetoric, the advantage is that they are providing a solution to your problem. They are coming out with reforms and all. But the problem about their rhetoric is that it's not relatable. They are talking about LCS scandal. I know there is a lot of money, corruption, but how does that do with me?
Okay.
But why is this different from 2018? Because 2018, we are talking about a problem, GST, that everyone pays, that affects everyone, that's very relatable, and we have a world-class corruption case of 1MGB. That's why that is the difference. So if the voices around it, imagine right now I'm buying something, there's emotions dragging me to stability, and there's the rational side of me, that this person can make it very relatable to me, I will go to them. But if this emotion is more relatable to me, I'll go to them. So right now it's a race of informations and a race of relatability, reach, and repetition of the campaign.
So how do you think that these coalitions can increase their persuasiveness to improve on their rhetoric?
Right, I will first talk about PH before I talk about BN and PN. So relatability of PH is relatability because they do not have any more chances for GST, like that affects everyone, but there's a way to make things relatable to people. Like for example, defense is something that far away, you know, some war is something that happens in my nanny times, but we are actually in a very contentious water of South China Sea dispute. So how do you make these defense things more relatable? You use metaphor. For example, I have a friend who is so passionate about defense. When I asked him, what is Ministry of Defense for? He said that it's like buying insurance. And there's a very interesting discussion that happens. Someone else asked him, why is this insurance so expensive? And then he explained how LCS scandal affects people using a metaphor. So you need to make your rhetoric relatable by doing that. You don't just talk, you are just like a professor talking to 300 students who are sleeping. So no impact. So that's what PS should be punching on.
Okay.
For BN and PN, it's really doing what a politician should do. Solve our problem. And BN is in the perfect position to do so because they have a very strong base, as being seen in Johor State election. The moment they show some changes to want to change and reform, probably, not to send, let's say, Kari to Sungai Buloh, but really cherish him as a person and to take reform agenda, talk about people's issues, they can win back the votes, Because now there are a lot of votes that are anti-BN rather than they like PH or PN. So this is their strength. And if we look at more democratic nation, the opposition and the governing party, they are solving people's problems, but they are using different approaches. And I would like to stress something here, that a lot of politicians or a lot of commentators, they say that let's say GPS is going to be the kingmaker, this political party is going to be the kingmaker. But actually, no. The kingmaker is the people's discussion. So in 2018, when we are talking about problems, the rhetoric that talks about reforms won. So in 2020, we can see that there's a shift of us talking about problems to race. There's a lot of Jawi, Malay Dignity Congress, a series of things. Those parties that use race wins. And then from 2020 to 2021, when we talk back about our problems, this government's fall. So the kingmaker is people's discussion. And it's very important for you to focus on your problems because be it that it is going to be BN who governs or PN who governs or PH who governs, if your discussion is on your problems, all this government needs to do work the moment they govern. So what I would like to stress in this particular, in this talk is that you need to focus on your problem and you don't get distracted by emotional talks or fabricated racial rhetoric like Dima, like 3PH or Jawi, and we benefit from this.
Because of this, let's talk about the voters now, because they need to cut across all these noise and try to form a calculated opinion and an emotive one, November 19th. And with the advent of misinformation, malinformation, as well as cyber troopers, how do you feel voters should really cut across the noise and find the information that is most relevant to them and most accurate information as well?
All right. I think the most important thing, again, I would like to reiterate what I say is you ask yourself first, what are the problems that you want people to solve? Like for me, it will be inflation, it will be job opportunities, and information reforms, right? These are the three things. So the things about stability, I will just cut it across. How is that relevant to me? If I take my nasi campur to people who talk about stability, I say that, can you reduce the price for me? They will tell you, don't take sayur lah, don't take meat lah, then it will be cheaper. So this kind of rhetoric is emotive rhetoric that I will immediately cut across. So the first thing that you have to ask yourself is, what are my problems? And then you assess the rhetoric, whether or not they are emotive, whether or not they are providing you solutions. And then you assess that rhetoric by how willing, how likely they are going to do it, and the content of their rhetoric.
We'll go for one short break before we continue on our conversation with Ng Miao Ling, pardon me, information and media policy activist. We'll be right back after these messages. Thanks for staying on with us. I have with me Ng Miao Ling. I got your name right this time around. Information and Media Policy Activist, formerly of CIIG, or the Centre of Independent Journalism. Miao Ling, let's talk a little bit more about the difference between campaign and information manipulation. How do you distinguish the two, and what's the step forward for this?
All right, sure. So campaign is you are playing by the rules. So every single coalition, they can use Facebook ads, they can use Charama to sell their ideas, their rhetoric. So it's okay. But information manipulation is different. Information manipulation is not playing by the book, and they are deliberately silencing certain discussions that are probably beneficial for the people, but not benefiting themselves, and exemplifying, like magnifying certain volume that distracts people.
Okay. Do you feel that this is a manipulation technique that is being deployed by politicians to, I guess, pull the hood on voters?
Yeah, it is not only during general election, it is like every day.
And let's talk about the key classification of content by cyber troopers and how they affect voters now.
Yeah. The key content that cyber troopers always spread, there are 5 different things. The first one is, propaganda, pro-government. The second one is attacking opposition. The third one is distracting. And I'm going to talk about this later on. It's very important.
Let's talk about this now,
Okay. So distraction is a very key tactic that's been deployed for 60 years. So I'll give you an example, a normal day example. Sometime this time last year, TIMA and budget happened in the same time. But do you remember discussions about budget? No, discussions about TIMA. They are fabricating this kind of rhetoric that talks about, a wine label. I'm spending 1 billion in general election for these people, right? To talk about wine label, to talk about signboards, to talk about 3-page of Jawi. So they come up with fabricated rhetoric and they increase the volume. They attach some conspiracy theories, let you to talk about this so that I can shy away from responsibility. So this is something that to cover incompetence. I'll give you a more important example for them to shy away from responsibility. Back in 1MDB, when 100,000 people go to the street, they say that it's a Chinese rally. It's an anti-corruption rally. They say that it's a Chinese rally to topple Malay government, to try to distract you, to talk about race, to justify the unity of Malay thing. And also, when Lalita actually uncovered this Azam Baki scandal, they say that, this person is trying to topple Malay government. They want to distract you. They do not want to be accountable for their actions. So this is, they want to increase that volume so that you don't talk about what Lalita says, you talk about what I say. And do you think it's very successful now? Did anyone talk about Azam Baki scandal? No one.
But it works, right, towards their favor in terms of this distraction.
Yes.
Because of this, it will continue to go on and even, intensify. How do you feel about voters trying to get the best information, knowing that these politicians are rather diverting the real cause of issues compared to what they're supposed to do?
Right. So this is very important. How do we respond to these politicians? For example, right now, someone raised TIMA. Okay, TIMA is the issue of wine label. Again, they are going to raise this kind of issue. They are going to raise a signboard issue. They are going to raise any other labels. So you know it already is to distract you. The first thing that you do is not to comment about whether or not TIMA is anti-Islam. This is their rhetoric. You talk about, hey, I know that you are trying to distract me, and this is not your job. You should be scolding them and condemning them, and say that they are distracting, and then shift that discussion back to your problem. You should be talking about how do you reduce inflation. You should be talking about how do you create job opportunities for me, so that you can divert the entire public discourse back to the problems. That is the way that we should be responding to politicians, rather than talking about whether it's anti-Islam and all, so that when these discussions get louder, everyone got pulled away. And did anyone talk about budget?
So how do you improve on the problem of media manipulation, for instance, and of course cyber troopers as well?
All right. I think this is a very important thing that everyone has to know, that right now we are in a very distorted information environment, like TIMA and budget and 3-page of Jawi as compared to the fake halal logo meat scandal. People don't really talk about that, but people talk about all these textbook things, right? So why is that happening? Because our good information is too little, relatable good information, and our bad information is proliferating. So how do we do that? So we turn it around. We have to reduce the bad information and increase good information. So how do we go about reducing bad information? The best person to remove cyber troopers, to remove all these hate speeches, are the social media companies. But they are unwilling to do that. Why is that so? I mean, Ibrahim, you are also in media. You know that social media earns by ads. So how do you determine how do we magnify your ads profit? This is by reach. Like, the more people comment on certain things, the more people stay onto a certain platform, the higher the chances that they are going to click onto ads that Facebook profits.
Yeah, enragement equals to engagement.
Yes, enragement. That's why they are not very willing to remove all these hate speeches and all. And this is not said by me, it's by a whistleblower called Frances Hogan just last year alone. And she said that according to research, Facebook only acted on 3 to 5% of hate speeches. 3 to 5%. And also, recently Facebook do say that they removed 600 accounts linked to Malaysian police. Do you think 600 accounts is a lot for cyber troopers?
No, not a lot.
Not a lot. Why? Because last time Ratu Naga, which is, this is not her real name. She previously worked for BN cyber trooping team, and she has 80 cyber troopers under her, having over 1,000 accounts. And if Facebook can identify 600 accounts linked to Malaysian police, do you think that they can identify by other political parties? They can, but they are not willing to. So right now, how do we turn Facebook, this kind of social media companies, from a foe to a friend? Because we are cutting their profit. It is from tax. So how do we give them tax cuts and all? So for the tax argument, I wouldn't talk a lot on that, but there are recent developments that wanting to tax all the social media companies, which by very near future, 2023, 2024, Malaysia will have a certain amount of money that you can negotiate with the social media companies. Come, I'll give you some money. Let's regulate all this harmful information and cyber troopers together. We come up with a transparent criteria, and there are a lot of problems about Facebook as well. So Facebook, there's something that's very powerful about them is that they can reduce the algorithm of your post, and they can increase the algorithm of your post. So to increase good information, like good media outlets like Astro AWANI, group programs like Notepad with Ibrahim Sani, if you are creating good content, relatable content that stimulates public discussion, that promotes unity, not only that I'm going to give you tax cuts, I'm going to give you, come into an agreement with Facebook that to increase the reach of this good information, good media outlets. This will actually encourage a lot of media to do good content. And also, you should be setting up some media resilience fund. And this is to give more grants to those kind of self-media, to create relatable content, not on federal issues and all, but local issues, things that affect people daily, like littering. Yeah, like all this kind of thing. And not only that, they need to reporting, it is not news reporting, like today I saw this thing.
Yeah, we're talking about current affairs, social issues, local issues.
Yes. So I think the most important thing right now is to come up with real policies that reduce bad information, and social media is very important. And policies that increase good information by giving tax cuts to media outlets, by introducing good media, and also coming into an agreement with social media. If these media are good, you have to increase the algorithm for more for their content to be more exposed to public, and that serves as an encouragement for people to create good content.
How do you feel the sense of the mechanism in place? Are there any models that we can emulate?
Yes, actually this Media Resilience Fund is actually by France. They are actually guaranteed in their federal constitution, because we have to know that a lot of media, they create sensationalizing content for clicks, for advertisements. And that's why if you give an alternative source of revenue, they don't need to care about reach. This is where they create good content.
Okay. Final question right now. A lot of people are thinking about still or undecided on who they want to vote. To be honest, I'm one of them. I'm a voter in Sungai Buloh. I really don't know who to vote for just yet. I am actually attending some of the ceramah to listen, to go through some of the candidates. And I'm not just talking about Ramanan of PH and KJ of BN. I'm really looking at all the other candidates as well. And this is Sungai Buloh, where I have 7 choices to choose from. Batu, I'm sorry you guys, you have 10 folks to choose from. Ampang, 9, many others. 945, man. In fact, I did my own study on the average candidate per constituency. We're looking at 4.5 candidates per constituency divided by 222.
Yes.
That's how you get 945.
Yes.
How do we choose?
Again, we need to go back to the formula that I said just now. The first thing, what are your problems? Second thing, assess their rhetoric and remove all the emotive ones, and remove all the information that does not benefit you. And you assess based on that.
Fantastic. That was Ng Miao Ling, Information and Media Policy Analyst. If you've missed any part of this interview, just head on to astroawani.com, look for Notepad there. There's a lot of interviews that I've done when it comes to topics regarding the elections, including that of Datuk Nitin, of Lee Shamuddin, A. Khadija Sen, the National Journalist Laureate, as well as very recently James Chin, who gave a great and rather robust postulation on how the election is going to go down. All these interviews and more are going to be found on astroawani.com. For now, Ng Miao Ling, Information and Media Policy Activist, formerly of CIJ, has given us some of the ideas on how we as voters can better decide on who we need to vote for. My name is Ibrahim Sani. Have a great weekend ahead and do attend some of the rallies that is most pertinent to you in your locality. Stay tuned to Astro AWANI, your 15th general election channel.